Welcome to the BMW Blog YouTube channel and welcome to Antwerp, Belgium. So we're actually here today to test this brand new BMW iX5 hydrogen. If you recall, last year I actually traveled to Arjeplog, northern Sweden to drive an early production of this car. But now it's finally time to kind of get my hands on this near production series BMW iX5. And what do I mean by that? This particular car and other ones will go into a global fleet of test cars, which will be handed out to different customers and VIPs around the world. And they will have a chance to drive this car in the future and provide some feedback to BMW. And what I said, it was an early pre-production in Arjeplog. What I meant by that was that particular car had a bunch of testing equipment inside, some engineering equipment inside, and this one does not. This is basically a typical BMW X5 design, pre-facelift, because you've just seen the facelift, and inside it still has the old layout with iDrive 7, smaller screens and all of that. So this is really built on a pre-facelift BMW X5. So before I talk about the specs and also about the fuel cell vehicle and the technology, let me show a little bit about the design. So the only thing that kind of screams that it's different than your normal BMW X5, it's really the front end. As you can see, all these blue accents all around. You have this mesh grille, which is specific to the BMW iX5 hydrogen. Of course, it's got the M Sport package standard, so it looks quite aggressive, quite massive, and that's a nice touch to see on these test vehicles. Blue inserts on the bottom, of course, because it denotes the BMW i brand, the Electrify brand. And of course, in case you don't know, this is a fuel cell vehicle, which means it's still an electric car in a way. So if you go to our YouTube channel, you will see some workshops that we have attended today where we talked about the technology, but I'll keep it brief. So basically, the energy in this car is being produced by hydrogen. There are two tanks inside the car where 6 kilograms of hydrogen are being stored. One of them is in the center of the car, and there is another one in a T-shape that sits right underneath the rear bench. The electricity is being sent to the rear wheel drive, so you have an e-motor, a generation 5 BMW e-motor in the back, similar to what you've seen in the BMW iX or i4. So as I said, it's a rear-wheel drive platform. Now, when it comes to the hydrogen and the specs, let's talk about that first. So as I said, 6 kilograms of compressed hydrogen, they're stored inside a tank, and that's enough to give you a range of about 500 kilometers on the WLTP cycle. Power. As I mentioned, you have a fuel cell system at the front, you have the e-motor in the back. In combination, they both produce about 295 kilowatts of power. In lay terms, or in horsepower, that's about 400 horsepower total output in the car. 0 to 60, less than 6 seconds, so it's quite fast. And as I said, it's of course all electric. So why is BMW making a fuel cell vehicle, a hydrogen car? Well, they're trying to hedge their bets, basically. They want to look at this technology because it has a few advantages compared to a pure BEV vehicle. And one of them is clearly the refueling or the recharging, however you want to call it, because it takes about 3 to 5 minutes to actually fill up this car with hydrogen. And that's, of course, a major advantage over the fast charging on a pure BEV. Of course, the expectations are that in the future, especially with the trucking industry potentially moving more and more towards, hybrid platforms and fuel cell vehicles, then the expectations are that the infrastructure network will expand and there will be plenty of charging stations or refueling stations to accommodate hydrogen cars. Currently, California has about 81 of them, but naturally other states are not as fortunate. So, with that being said, today I am gonna hop behind the wheel. My experience will be mostly focused on how it drives, maybe compared to another electric car, maybe even compared to the BMW X5 plug-in hybrid, because in all electric mode, they are clearly comparable. So with that being said, let me hop inside and I'm gonna tell you more about the car and all about the other specs, so come join me. Alright guys, so you've seen my intro video with the BMW iX5 hydrogen. I'm now inside the car, ready to go for a drive. I'm here with Volker. He's one of the engineers in charge of the fuel cell technology for the BMW iX5. We're gonna tell you a little bit more about the technology that's inside this car, and then also, of course, about the driving experience. So Volker, thanks for having me. Maybe before I tell them my driving impressions, maybe let's cover a little bit more about the drivetrain on this car. So I'm gonna tell you what I know, and you're gonna tell me if I'm correct or not. So basically, fuel cell electric vehicle, it is still an electric vehicle, right, but instead of using a battery pack, you're using hydrogen to generate power. And then we have rear wheel drive platform in this one. So the electric motor, it's in the back. It's a 5th generation motor from the BMW iX, for example. And if I remember correctly, that one produces about 170 kilowatts in the back, and then at the front we have the fuel cell system, which makes an additional 125 kilowatts. So the overall output, it's about 395 kilowatts. In lay terms, for people that are used to horsepower, about 400 horsepower in this car. Exactly. Weight wise, because we do have a couple of large tanks, hydrogen tanks in the car. One, it's in the center console, and the other one in a T-shape in the back underneath the bench. Basically, that also helps with the balance of the car, probably to keep it kind of like 50-50, similar to a normal X5.
Yeah, we've got a good balanced vehicle. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and then 6 kilograms of hydrogen are being stored inside the tanks, and
correct.
The pressure, if I remember correctly, about 700 bars.
Yeah, maximum pressure. Yes.
Basically, that's kind of the industry standard right now. Performance-wise, if I recall correctly, it's 0 to 100 kilometers per hour under 6 seconds, and I guess that's comparable to, let's say, an X5 xDrive 45e plug-in hybrid.
Right.
All right. Anything else that I missed? Do you think it's worth mentioning?
Yeah, these are the main data, performance data, driving range, I think.
So yeah, that's an interesting one. Yep. Yeah. So I guess we said about 500 kilometers on the WLTP standard. It was not rated on EPA for the US yet, and I guess we started with about 400 something kilometers, and we're gonna monitor the range and the consumption and all of it. I guess the day will go something like this, a little bit of autobahn highway driving, and we're gonna jump on some normal roads and some city driving. So we'll have a combination of everything, really, so that way we can get an accurate estimation of the range also, and also of the driving characteristics of the car.
Right.
From a fuel cell perspective, maybe tell me a little bit more how the technology has improved compared to what we've seen in 6-7 years ago with the 6 Series Gran Turismo. There was another project. How has it evolved?
One more word to the technology itself. It's an electric drive, it's a zero emission vehicle, and we've got the huge benefit in getting filled the vehicle within 2 to 3 minutes. So that is really a big advantage, and hydrogen makes a lot of sense in following that technology. And we've got a demonstration here in our vehicle that BMW is capable of showing that technology. Yeah, and we are very proud of having that vehicle in this shape.
One of the key messages that we've learned earlier today also in the presentation was that this is not a replacement for a BMW BEV vehicle right now. It's more of an addition or an alternative for people that are looking for, different types of drivetrains. And I guess in this case, because we're talking about an X5, this is more of a family vehicle. This is something that will be useful for, let's say, longer road trips where you do have the infrastructure to refill quickly. And we do have a video on that also. And I guess the expectation is that we will see some of these vehicles on the road by the end of this year. Different markets will get different units, and certain customers or VIPs will have a chance to experience what the car can do. What's the future looking like for hydrogen? Like, how do you think that the industry or the customers will adopt the technology? What are some of the drivers?
Well, hydrogen is offering the possibility to use regenerative energy from solar windmills and solar panels, and that is the idea. So hydrogen is offering to store that energy and offers a great opportunity for vehicles to drive without any emissions.
I guess one of the things that I noticed today in the presentation that was quite interesting was the fact that with a BEV vehicle, fully electric vehicle with a battery pack, basically a lot of energy can be lost, especially if you're trying to produce that energy and you don't store it or you don't feed it into the grid. It's actually lost, versus the hydrogen. You don't have to turn off the windmill, for example. You can keep producing hydrogen and actually store it and then reuse that in a vehicle. So that was one interesting point for sure.
Right.
Okay, so now about the driving experience, I guess at a first glance it really feels like an electric vehicle. There is really not a big difference compared to, let's say, an iX. Of course, that one has a little bit more power, so you can feel that. But from a driving perspective, so far what I've experienced is really an electric car, just having an alternative drivetrain. It's worth mentioning that it's really a BMW iX5.
Yeah.
No difference inside and out. Of course, this is the pre-facelift, so it doesn't have the latest design, of course, because of the technology cycle or the development cycle of this car. Inside, the only thing that stands out that it's a hydrogen. I guess it's just the logo on the dashboard, and you know, the start and stop being blue, which is similar probably to the X5 hybrid. It does come equipped with adaptive dampers, so I guess customers have the option to adjust the driving style same way that we do in an X5, and I guess we'll have a chance to play with the sport mode a little bit. I guess compared to the car that I drove last year in Areopla, which is a very early production iX5, that one did not have the sport mode here, and it's giving you some additional e-boost basically, right?
Right, and the driving behavior is more sporty if you are in the sport mode.
So similar to a combustion power car, it does adjust the power delivery on the throttle. I can feel the suspension being a little bit stiffer once you go into the sport mode, and so on and so forth. The one interesting topic that we've talked about earlier today, and I guess we have to bring it up a little bit more, compared to some of the other companies like, let's say, Toyota, which is a partner for BMW as far as the fuel cells. The idea with this car was really to make sure that you're producing continuous power without any loss at any point, versus some competitors, they're going more for peak power and then more balance, versus BMW wants to really have all that power available at all time without any sacrifice. Is that a fair statement, you think?
Well, I don't want to compare it with competitors. In our philosophy, one of the givens that we show the performance of our system at any time, at any condition, and of course with necessary dynamic. So these are the topics we followed in our development, and that is what we show here. So we've got a system which is capable of providing 125 kW, and this power is provided at any time and any condition. If you drive the vehicle in Areopla at minus 20 degrees C or somewhere else at 40 degrees C, climbing up hills, this power is available, and this is a target we had in mind by doing our development of the system.
Sure. So let me ask you a question. Maybe you can explain this topic a little bit better than I can. In an electric car, in a BEV, basically, in order to fully optimize the car for cold temperature or even very warm temperatures, you need to precondition the car. So that's one of the main requirements for that car in order to optimize the battery efficiency and, of course, the interior heat and all of that. With hydrogen works a little bit different from what you explained earlier. Do you mind telling me a little bit more about that?
If you compare the fuel cell technology with the BEV technology, the BEV technology needs to provide also the conditioning for the cabin by using the electricity from the battery, which is intended to provide the electricity for driving as well. So in case you take the electricity for cabin conditioning, this energy is not usable for driving. And the fuel cell system is different. We do have a certain amount of off heat by producing our electricity at any time, and this heat can be used, of course, for the cabin conditioning. So it's very similar to a combustion engine. So we use the off heat of the drivetrain and condition the cabin. So we do not expect any, or we do not have any losses under cold conditions for heating up the cabin.
I've also seen the drivetrain exposed in the workshop, and you guys can check that out in our other video. And I noticed there is a small battery pack in the back of the car basically, and it's a 2.5 kilowatt capacity. What's that being used for, and how do you recharge that one?
Yeah, so we do have an hybrid powertrain configuration. That means we've got two power sources. One is a fuel cell system. This is the main power source in providing the electricity to the drive unit, and we also got the battery system. The continuous power by continuous speed or full speed of the autobahn or climbing uphill, this is all provided by the fuel cell system, but in acceleration time the power is boosted by the battery.
Okay.
So and that is very important. We are not using the battery for taking all the dynamics. The fuel cell system is the main power provider in that propulsion system, and we are capable of following the power command from the driver.
Okay, and basically by using brake regeneration technology from other BMWs, that's one way to regenerate electricity inside the battery pack.
Right.
And speaking of that, this particular car, the iX5 Hydrogen, comes with the one pedal feel also, and you can adjust that with 3 different settings, a high, a medium, and a low, and you can do that by using the shift paddles. So you actually found a good use case for the shift paddles from the combustion car, because you don't have to change the gears like that. You can use that to regen. So I guess we'll have a chance to test that. So basically the plus goes into the highest setting, and that gives you a one pedal feel and the highest regeneration. And then of course if you use the minus, it will be a lot milder when it comes to that, and I can feel it as I drive. Of course, as always, if you want to get the most energy, you'll use the high. You have to be careful a bit with motion sickness. A lot of people don't enjoy that, but you do have the option to do these 3 steps. I guess it doesn't have the adaptive mode that you would see basically in an iX and i4, because it's a little bit different when it comes to the drivetrain. I guess now that we're driving through normal villages and small cities, it's really the typical BMW driving behavior. Nothing surprising there. It just literally feels like any other electric car, quite balanced. Of course, it's an X5, so it's quite spacious. So when it comes to the utility of the car, there are no compromises there. One thing that I haven't, it might not be your department, but maybe you know, is there any cargo space loss in this car because of the hydrogen tanks or the motor in the back?
No, actually we offer the same space as a normal
X5.
X5, right? So
there is no loss of cargo space, no rear space issues, and so on and so forth. And of course, hydrogen also gets a reputation for maybe not being safe and all of that. What are some of the the engineering implementation that you've done to ensure that the tanks are safe and all of that?
Absolutely, we are following any rules, and safety is one of our top priority. Even we extend the standards for safety within our development guidelines.
All right, so we're doing a little bit more driving, so I just switched into the sport mode. As I mentioned earlier, you can feel the car being a lot sportier, so I guess it's the same philosophy that you've seen in other BMWs. You do have the Eco Pro mode, the most efficient mode. That's the one that's going to give you the most energy back into the little battery pack as well. Of course, you go into the comfort mode where everything is a little bit softer. And then if you go into the sport, you do have the option to adjust individually the damping settings, the steering, of course, just like the other BMWs, no difference there. Being an X5, you're not going to try probably to track this car, so probably the sport mode, it's not the one that's going to be used the most, but nonetheless, it's an option thing that's always nice to have in a BMW car. Driving experience, because I've had a chance to drive quite a few electric cars lately, iX1, iX, i4, of course. It is very, very similar. Of course, you are getting a lot more power in the iX, for example, so that's always going to be a little bit more fun if you're looking for that factor. But nonetheless, 0 to 100 kph under 6 seconds, it's more than enough for a lot of people, and especially if you use this as your daily driver, I don't think you're ever going to feel like it's underpowered, so there is no compromise there. So let's assume that today you have the option to buy an X5 hybrid, an X5 electric, and an X5 hydrogen. The question might be, which one would you pick? And of course, To answer that question, you have to use your personal case, because every technology has its advantages and disadvantages, of course. And if you're looking, let's say, at the X5 50e, which is the latest plug-in hybrid from BMW, they came with a facelift. That's the most versatile car that you can buy today. It's one of BMW's best-selling X5s today. And what it does, basically, it allows you to go fully electric for short distances. I think the range is about 30 miles, so if you're having really short commutes, it's perfect because you can go fully electric. With that, of course, you have the option to use the gasoline engine, so it's perfect for long road trips. So clearly the advantages of the plug-in hybrid should not be discounted. Now, of course, if there was to be a BMW X5 electric, and it's likely that we will see one in the future, then it will come down, of course, to the charging infrastructure. So if you want to buy a fully electric car, either a BMW or any other brand, basically, it will come down also to access to a charging network, to a home charging, so on and so forth. And of course, if that's not an issue, an electric BMW, it's always nice to have. Now we come to the BMW iX5 Hydrogen. So as I said, once again, this offers the benefits of a fully electric BMW, of course, with the additional benefit that you can refill quite quickly. Of course, the infrastructure is equally important in the hydrogen, just as it would be for a BEV vehicle. And from what I remember today, seeing a chart at about 81 refueling stations, hydrogen refueling stations in California. Quite a lot for the state, of course. The rest of the US, it's not that well equipped when it comes to the network for hydrogen. The expectations are there, governments are going to be pushing the hydrogen or fuel cell vehicles quite a bit in the future, and hopefully with the help of the trucking industry and other industries, there will be a decent infrastructure network that you can use with your fuel cells. So of course, if that's the case, and especially if you live in California and you do have access to those refilling stations, then of course the BMW iX5 will make sense. Unfortunately, it's not going to be for sale for normal customers for a while. BMW is looking to offer maybe in the future a production series vehicle where anybody can actually go and purchase one. The one thing also that I probably have to touch on, it's BMW's strategy for the future. The Neue Klasse is basically a brand new platform that BMW will put in place starting in 2025. It is EV first, but there are also some indications that we might see a fuel cell vehicle built on that platform as well. There is no confirmation from BMW yet. But clearly, if that were to happen, the technology that we see today in this car will have to evolve a little bit because the tanks are quite big. And I'm assuming the packaging inside the Neue Klasse is a bit tighter because it's so specific to a BEV vehicle versus the CLAR platform that we're on right now, which aims to accommodate all types of drivetrains, from combustion engines to plug-in hybrids to EVs as well. So I have a feeling that BMW in the future will give us another generation of the fuel cell vehicle, and we might see that in Neue Klasse as well. Of course, we're still years away from that, and before that we will see the next generation of BEV vehicles as well. Of course, that will come with its own advancement in technology, especially when it comes to battery packs and electric motors. But nonetheless, BMW, it's hedging their bets clearly. So they're not giving up on the hydrogen strategy like other manufacturers. And we've also heard, just recently about the ban of combustion engines in 2035 in Europe. So clearly alternative powertrains are needed. This might sound like plan B, but truth is, that we don't know what the future will bring. We don't know exactly the challenges of BEV vehicles being on the road in the millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions of units, and how will that impact the electricity grid, the charging infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So of course the hydrogen might be an alternative to that, even though it might not be fully, or maybe like a large portion of the future fleets. It could still accommodate a significant amount of cars that are on the road that will be powered by hydrogen. And like I said earlier, the infrastructure will play an important role in that. I believe, I don't have an exact figure, but I've heard that the cost to build out hydrogen filling station is in the millions. But of course, it actually works in conjunction with the regular station for gasoline cars. So essentially, new stations could be built to have a dual infrastructure for both hydrogen and combustion cars. So that's one of the advantages of that. But we'll see what the future brings. For now, this is, you know, BMW's kind of maybe third attempt right now at hydrogen. We've had the 7 Series in early 2000s. There was a completely different technology than we've seen in, I believe, 2014-15 with the Series GT, and there was also a BMW i8 hybrid, and now this is the latest iteration of that platform. Of course, different technology as well. So we'll see what the future brings, but for now, this is the BMW iX5 hydrogen. Like I said, I'm gonna wrap it up with this. It feels like a normal BMW car. It's still an electric car, but it is powered by hydrogen. It is still a sustainable car. When it comes to that, of course, it's got its own challenges with some of the materials used and recycling and so on and so forth. But this is what we have here today. So with that being said, hopefully we get to drive the car a little bit longer, maybe for a week at a time, or we can experience the efficiency in this car compared to a BEV. Maybe it'll be interesting to drive it daily to see how it compares to BEV vehicles. That way we can give you a better assessment. But for now, this is really meant to be a test fleet, one to capture data from customers and also to promote the fuel cell vehicles. And you've also might have seen our previous video with the CEO of Hydrogen for Europe. He talked quite a bit about how the electric cars and the hydrogen cars are kind of complementary, so they don't aim to kind of remove each other from the equation. So once again, BMW iX5 hydrogen. We're joined by Volker. Thank you so much for all the information today. I guess we're gonna go for some more driving, a little bit more faster probably on the highway. So guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.